Right before the semester started, I broke up with Maria. She asked lazily, just because I went on his senior trip with him? It was his only wish. Can you stop being so petty? Someone on the other end of the phone shouted, Maria, look, so many dolphins. It was David, the scholarship kid who had been chasing her for 3 years. Stop it. I brought you a gift. See you tomorrow, Maria said, and hung up. She thought tomorrow was just my birthday party. But I was leaving the country with my girlfriend. Tomorrow was actually our engagement party. Maria and I were neighbors, childhood sweethearts. When we played house as kids, she played the bride and I played the groom. The adults would laugh and tease us. Are you two really going to get married when you grow up? Maria, with her childish but firm voice, would answer, yup. When I grow up, I'm definitely marrying Blake. I'm going to be good to him forever. And for the next 10 years or so, she kept that promise. Everything revolved around me. Everyone knew I was her whole world. Our families assumed we'd go to the same college and get married as a matter of course. Until David showed up. He went viral because of a video where he saved a cat from the roof of a diner. In the clip, wearing black framed glasses, he couldn't hide his incredibly handsome face. Kindness plus good looks made David an overnight sensation. When the media interviewed him, he was wearing an apron, working a shift. He showed no sign of insecurity, introducing himself with natural grace. I'm an orphan, but I have 2 hands and 2 feet. I don't want to be a burden on the orphanage, so I work to pay my tuition. As for saving the cat, it was nothing. Anyone would have done it. Netizens praised him as a resilient, beautiful soul and called on universities to give him a full ride. Many schools actually stepped up with offers. But in the end, David chose the private prep school my family owns. I'm not chasing status, he said. The teachers there are just better. I want to get into a good university, learn real skills, and give back to society so I don't waste everyone's kindness. After the semester started, David was placed in my class. Maria was in the class next door. After the first period, she ran over to find me. Blake, I can't believe you're not in my class just because of this David guy. David, sitting in the row ahead of me, turned around. He blushed the moment he saw Maria. He stammered, Blake, you know who I am? Maria cut in. Of course he knows. You only got into the school because of Blake. He asked his dad to approve your full scholarship. He was worried you'd get bullied, so he specifically put you in his class. Otherwise, with his grades, he'd be in the honors track with me. David's face turned even redder. He pursed his lips and looked at Maria. Thank you. I didn't know any of that. I frowned slightly. This didn't quite match the confident, open David from the interview. Maria frowned too. Why thank me? You should be thanking Blake. David finally looked at me and whispered a quiet thank you. But his eyes drifted past me, following Maria toward the door. That was the moment I knew. Everything David presented in that video was mostly an act. Growing up wealthy, I'd seen too many people play the poor and helpless card to manipulate my parents. Fortunately, my mom was strictly business. Fortunately, my dad was ruthless enough. That's why I didn't have any illegitimate siblings, or maybe I did, but they'd never surfaced publicly. That same day, I ordered a background check on David's viral video. When the results came in, Maria was lounging at my house playing video games. I knew it. That guy is a fraud, I said. The investigation showed that David had put the cat on the roof himself. The cat had been starving up there for 3 days. Just as it was about to suffer heat stroke, during peak foot traffic, he climbed out of a second-floor window and caused a commotion. People followed his gaze and spotted the cat. Passersby's phones became the tools of his fame. Let's expose him at school tomorrow, Maria said, looking to me for approval. Let it go. Pretend we don't know. Just stay away from him. Exposing him would only make the school, my family's school, look stupid for admitting him. I wouldn't allow anything that tarnished my family's reputation. As long as he didn't cause trouble, I could suppress the truth. I transferred to Maria's honors class, and for the next 2 years I didn't interact much with David. Junior year, the thing I had always feared happened. My mom might actually have a secret illegitimate daughter. So, For the entire summer before senior year, I devoted my time to studying and networking. I needed to get into a top-tier university to prove I wasn't just a useless trust fund kid, ensuring I could smoothly inherit the family business. Because of this, I turned down Maria's invitations to hang out several times. She got annoyed. Even if an illegitimate daughter comes for the assets, you still have me, right? When I marry you, half of the Smith family empire is yours. I tried to explain it patiently. Maria, it's not the same. My mom built her empire alongside my dad. That girl has no right to compete with me. I'm just protecting what's mine, protecting what my dad deserves. Do you understand? Maria didn't understand. Her brain was only filled with romance. She slammed the door on her way out. Blake, if you don't keep a tighter leash on me, watch out or someone else might snatch me away. I sighed as I watched her leave. Suddenly, I felt like maybe we weren't right for each other. I didn't want to use manipulation and mind games just to keep a woman. But I understood her frustration, so I texted her. How about after my tennis lesson, we go to the amusement park for the fireworks? Maria didn't reply. I went to her house to find her, but the driver told me he had just dropped her off at the amusement park. That night, I saw David's Instagram post. Grand fireworks at the park, just like your blossoming heart. The post contained a grid of selfies, but in the last photo, I saw half of a woman's watch, the birthday gift I had given Maria. I knew David had been pursuing Maria for the last 2 years, but I had never interfered. In my eyes, David posed zero threat, and I trusted Maria. But now, Maria was proving me wrong. I sat in the courtyard of the Smith estate, drinking juice, waiting for her. I used the time to seriously consider whether I actually liked her, or if I was just used to her. The sound of the fountain acted like white noise, helping me focus. Looking back on our years growing up, I decided I did like Maria. Seeing David's post made my chest feel tight. Possessiveness, discomfort, fear. I was afraid of losing her. Over the years, I'd gotten used to doing everything together. I wanted the family fortune and I wanted Maria. So I was willing to wait there, wait for her to come back so I could comfort her and hear her explanation. But I waited until late at night, and she didn't return. The butler said she was staying at their family hotel near the park. Maybe it was too late and the young miss was tired. I'll tell her to come find you as soon as she returns tomorrow, the butler explained for her. Is she alone? I asked. The butler fell silent, unsure of how to answer. But I already knew. David was there. I slept poorly that night, plagued by chaotic dreams. In one, my dad was crying, holding my mom and asking why she betrayed him. Beside me stood a little girl, smiling at me. I'm the daughter, you're just a son. The inheritance will be mine. You can't beat me. Mom likes me more. Panicked and helpless, I instinctively looked to Maria for help. But she looked at me coldly, turned, took David's hand and walked away. Blake, you're too boring. It's no fun. I screamed for her, but she never looked back. I woke up drenched in sweat. Dad was sitting by my bed. What's wrong? I told him about the nightmare. He smiled and wiped my sweat. Dad doesn't care if your mom betrays me. Dad only cares if what belongs to my son gets given to someone else. If a woman doesn't love you anymore, or betrays you, you just find another one. Broken feelings fade into the wind eventually. But remember this, son. If the money is gone, there's no way to find a replacement. I knew then that the rumors about Mom's secret daughter weren't baseless. So, Dad, you won't divorce her, right? I asked. Dad nodded. Not until you successfully inherit the business. Not until you become the head of the company. But that's so unfair to you. I felt a surge of bitterness. Dad stroked my hair. It's not unfair. Being rich makes life incredibly free. When you're older, you'll realize that money and power give you a kind of satisfaction a woman can't compare to. Even though your mom wronged me, she doesn't love you any less. Of course, if she starts favoring someone else, forget I said that. Comforted by Dad's words, I felt much better. At breakfast, I saw David's Instagram. First time staying at a 5-star hotel. Super lavish breakfast. I'm the luckiest boy in the world. Thank you, my princess. Another photo grid. but he slyly included the hotel's name. Yesterday's amusement park post got a lot of likes. Today's had none. I realized he posted this specifically for me to see, to tell me he spent the night with Maria. I liked the post. Then I deleted him. My journey was about wealth, status, and power, not a petty little David. 3 days later, Maria finally texted me. I know you liked his post. Regret it now? Blake, I told you. You have to hold on to me tight, or it's easy for someone else to lure me away. I didn't reply. Half an hour later, she stormed into my house. Blake, I was just so angry. I was so scared of losing you. Not having you around made me feel empty, so I found him just to make you mad. Nothing happened between us. It's okay. I don't mind, I said softly, soothing her like a bristling kitten. I really didn't mind. I had taken Dad's words to heart. Maria blinked, then lay down beside me just like old times. Blake, let's go to the Hamptons tomorrow. My mom opened a new resort there. Sure, I didn't refuse this time. My family had quite a few assets in the Hamptons. I needed to go take a look, let the staff recognize my face. Maria was overjoyed. Then it settled. I'll pick you up tomorrow. Seeing Maria back to normal, my mood lifted a bit. The David thing was just a blip. I wrote it off as Maria's immature way of getting my attention. But the next day, in the Smith family car taking us to the airport, David was there. I looked at Maria coldly. What is this? David explained before Maria could. Don't blame her. I called her yesterday to ask about homework, and Miss Maria mentioned going to the Hamptons today. I've never been, so I asked if I could tag along. Don't worry, Blake. I definitely won't disturb you too. I'm just going for social studies credit. I wanted to go by myself, but with my family situation, I can't just travel whenever I want like you guys. David's voice got quieter and quieter, acting perfectly like the victim of my bullying. Maria looked at me, frowning slightly. Blake, he's just going the same way. We're all classmates, just giving him a lift. Don't be so stingy. I actually laughed. Maria, who used to be able to spot a fake from a mile away, was now playing dumb to defend David. You can get social studies credit anywhere. Why go to the Hamptons if you have no money? I glanced at Maria. If you're going together, I'll take my own car. Last night, Mrs. Smith found out I was coming and arranged the best suite for me. I couldn't disrespect her, so I still had to go to the resort. But I absolutely wouldn't degrade myself by sitting in the same car as them. While I was drinking tea in the VIP lounge, Maria walked in with David. Blake, I've noticed your temper is getting worse lately. I ignored her and quietly continued working on practice problems. Maria leaned in. Blake, are you jealous? Her eyes were full of anticipation. Too lazy to waste words, I nodded and gave him hum. Unexpectedly, Maria doubled down. She ordered someone to upgrade David to first class and actively carried his bag when boarding, doting on him. I followed behind them, thinking about how to surprise my mom when we got to the Hamptons. Lost in thought, I looked up to see David flashing a triumphant smirk at me. So sorry, Blake, to trouble your girlfriend like this, he whispered as I passed him. My voice wasn't loud, but everyone nearby heard it. Oh, she's always had a virtue for charity work. The expression on David's face was priceless. He was dressed in cheap clothes, carrying a knockoff bag, yet sitting in first class enjoying another man's girlfriend's care. Everyone understood exactly what was going on. Other passengers didn't say anything, but their eyes were full of disdain. David, who had been shielded from such direct humiliation at our private school because of me, flushed red. He looked at Maria, flustered. Miss Maria, he acted too aggrieved to speak. Maria's face darkened, and she glared at me. Blake, don't be excessive. He didn't choose his background. He has it hard enough, and his grades aren't worse than anyone else's. I cut her off. You can't choose your background, but you can choose not to insert yourself into other people's relationships. I put on my noise-canceling headphones, pulled up my blanket, and closed my eyes. Maria didn't speak to me for the rest of the flight. After we landed, she took David into the car Mrs. Smith sent for me. Since you don't want to ride with us, Suit yourself. I looked at the Maybach behind them. Fine. See you at the resort tonight. Blake, you're coming tonight? I thought we agreed you'd watch me surf? Maria demanded from the car. I looked at David beside her and smiled faintly. Didn't you agree yesterday that you were only coming with me? Agreements change. With that, I got into the Maybach. Let's go. I need to see my mom first. My family had recently launched a new project in the Hamptons. Mom was supervising it personally and hadn't been home in a long time. I straightened my clothes, went directly to the top floor, and pushed open the conference room door. Mom, I came to see you. My mom was happy to see me. She had cheated. She had a secret daughter. But she couldn't deny that her love for me was real. Because of that, I could use it to make sure every executive knew my face. Mom is in a meeting. Afterward, I'll take you to dinner. Okay. Dad said there are lots of restaurants here you guys used to go to when you were dating. I really want to go, I said, face full of expectation. Immediately, someone kissed up. The chairman and her husband are so loving. It's an example for all of us employees. I was very satisfied with that sycophant. Of course, Mom always says a stable home makes for a stable business. That's why our company invests so much in family care for employees. I hope every employee's family is as happy as ours, and all your kids are as cherished by their parents as I am. I stayed by Mom's side, frantically building up her public image. I needed everyone to know she only has one son, and she spoils him to death. After lunch with Mom, and getting fitted for a few custom suits, I finally went back to the resort. Maria had put David in the room right next to mine. As I rested by the pool, I heard them laughing and playing next door. I heard David ask Maria, "Are you really not going to find Blake?" Maria sounded confident. "You were right. Blake was spoiled growing up. He's used to me always revolving around him. I'm ignoring him for a few days like you said, just to annoy him. Then he'll realize how important I am. But didn't you prepare a candlelight dinner for him?" "It's a waste not to go," David said in his fake innocent voice. "Then you can have it. As a thank you for your advice." After a few clear laughs, there was a sudden scream and a splash, followed by someone jumping in. A moment later, I heard David's trembling voice. "Scared me to death. Thank you for saving me." Maria went full CEO protector mode. "Don't worry. With me here, nothing will happen to you." I shook my head, knowing I couldn't go on with Maria. She was too stupid. She didn't deserve me. The reason my dad advised me not to care too much about Maria's behavior was that our families were tied together by too many business deals. However, if being with her hurts you, Dad will clear out all the joint projects before you graduate. Dad won't let you suffer, he had said. If I suffered even a tiny grievance with Maria, he would clean up the mess immediately. But I didn't see it that way. Like Dad said, with money and power, what suffering is there? If I was going to fight the illegitimate daughter for the inheritance, I needed powerful allies. The Smith family had political connections. But looking at Maria's brain, it was unlikely she'd inherit the Smith family business anyway. The heir would most likely be her older sister. There are no eternal enemies, only eternal interests. 2 hours later, Maria posted on Instagram, "Candlelight dinner by the sea, a unique charm." The photo showed the hem of David's white shirt fluttering in the wind. I generously gave it a like. Then I screenshotted it and sent it to her sister. "I don't want your stupid sister anymore. How about I come to the US too, and we can be alumni?" Vivian Smith, in my memory, was like the perfect heroine from a novel. Beautiful, cool temperament, the pride of our social circle, talented, humble, and polite. Her only disadvantage was that her mother had died early. Although the Smith empire was built largely with help from Vivian's mother, over the years, Maria's mother's faction had slowly infiltrated the group's core. So even though Maria was inferior to Vivian in every way, she firmly believed she had the advantage to inherit the business. I didn't think so. As a kid, I didn't understand why Vivian chose to study abroad from a young age. Seeing her on holidays, I used to pity her. Now I understood. Only by staying away from the center of the power struggle could she stay safe. She was biding her time. I didn't believe Vivian would quietly accept the Smith group being handed over to Maria, so I wanted to seek an alliance. Since the tie with the Smith family couldn't be broken, switching to the other daughter for marriage wasn't a bad idea. Vivian replied quickly, "In class. Ignore her and get some rest. Let's talk tomorrow." I sent a sticker back, mentally rehearsing how I would persuade her the next day. I hadn't been sleeping well lately, and with this new plan, my mind was racing. To ensure I slept, I took 2 sleeping pills. I woke up at past 10 a.m. I was woken by pounding on the door. The moment it opened, Dad practically tackled me in a hug. "You're okay, you're okay. We called all night and you didn't answer. You scared us to death." Only then did I learn there had been an earthquake last night. Although the magnitude wasn't high, it triggered tsunami waves. Half the resort was destroyed. Mom and Dad spent the whole night trying to contact me. Resort staff said they saw Maria taking a boy to the shelter, and everyone assumed it was me. But when Mom rushed over and found Maria, she discovered the boy was David. Mom searched almost every shelter in the resort but couldn't find me. Dad flew in overnight. After ruling out every other possibility, they realized belatedly that I might still be in my room. "Let's go. Come home with Dad." Dad's face was grim as he ordered someone to pack my bags. As I followed Dad out of the resort, Maria ran over. "Blake, are you okay?" I turned my head away, refusing to look at her. I thought we just weren't suited as a couple. I never imagined that as a friend, as someone I grew up with, she would forget me for David. I didn't blame her for saving David first. All lives are equal. In a disaster, you help whoever is closest. But after David was safe, she never came for me. My chest felt blocked. The pain was so intense I nearly retched. The feeling of being abandoned by someone you trust is unbearable. "Blake, don't be mad." David twisted his ankle, and it's his first time here, he doesn't know anyone. Plus, the earthquake and waves scared him. I was just taking care of him. Our resort hotel has a high seismic rating, so I interrupted her. "Since the rating is so high, why did you work so hard to drag him out to hide?" Maria stammered, unable to speak. Mom took my suitcase, her face cold. "Blake, let's go home. There's nothing to say." I got home, and immediately after, Maria was forced over by Mrs. Smith's frantic phone calls to apologize in person. "Old Donald, I failed to raise her right. That's why this brat did such a thing. I brought her to apologize to Blake." Maria tried to come upstairs to find me, but Mom blocked her. "If you want to continue with Blake, you at least need to cut contact with that boy, right?" Hearing this, Maria's face turned cold. "Even you misunderstand me. Auntie, my conscience is clear. Why should I cut contact if I haven't done anything wrong? That would just make me look guilty. I came to apologize today to show my attitude. But if Blake keeps being this petty and refuses to trust me, maybe we really need to reconsider our relationship." With that, Maria turned and left. I stood on the balcony watching her. Before she reached the main gate, she looked back and met my gaze. In the dark, I couldn't see her expression clearly. We stared at each other through the window for a long time. I remembered a school trip in elementary school where we ran into kidnappers. While escaping, I almost fell off a cliff. Maria lay on the edge, holding on to me for dear life, refusing to let go even when her strength gave out. Face red and sweating, she told me, "Blake, as long as I'm here, nothing will happen to you. Blake, I will block all the danger for you." But when the earthquake hit, she didn't go next door to get the guy who was knocked out on sleeping pills. I took a deep breath, but my vision blurred uselessly. Felt like a hole had been torn in my heart. It hurt so much I could barely stand. No matter how much I planned for the future, I was still only 17 or 18. I needed comfort and someone to lean on. All the armor I tried to hold up shattered in that moment. When I was most tired and helpless, struggling to fight for my inheritance, Maria was keeping someone else company. She would never be by my side whenever I needed her. Not like before. The girl who grew up with me, who had been part of my life for 17 years, had removed me as her priority. I closed the curtains and stopped looking at the figure downstairs. It was completely over between Maria and me. She had done so many ridiculous things before, but I thought even if we couldn't be lovers, we could still be friends. But now we couldn't even be friends. I didn't see Maria for the rest of the summer. We tacitly stopped contacting each other. 2 weeks after school started, Maria suddenly called me. Blake, are you done throwing a tantrum? Time to come back to school, right? Senior year is intense. Do you still want to get into Stanford? I glanced at the woman beside me and said calmly, no need. I have a tutor. After that day, Dad sent me to the US. He bought the villa next to Vivian's. I was there to focus on preparing for Ivy League applications. Hearing this, Maria laughed. Good, you haven't forgotten our promise. See you at Stanford, Blake. I hung up and turned to look at Vivian. Don't look at me. Look at your book, Vivian said coolly. The day I suggested going abroad, Vivian immediately bought a ticket and flew back. As soon as she landed in the Hamptons and heard about the quake, she rushed to my house. That night, while Maria was standing downstairs looking up at me, Vivian was at the desk behind me, pitching her university to my dad. Uncle, I will take good care of Blake. Don't worry. Dad already admired Vivian. Seeing her care so much about me, and having heard Maria's absurd comments, he decided immediately to let me go abroad with Vivian. Son, study hard and live well out there. Don't think too much. Dad can handle the family business. Understand? Dad doesn't want to see you taking sleeping pills anymore. Okay? You're 17. At this age, Dad just wants you to be happy. Vivian took Dad's words to heart. In the days since we arrived in the US, she only focused on my studies. When I got tired, she took me out. When we were done playing, she went home and cooked for me. Do you always cook for yourself? I asked, leaning on the kitchen island. I remembered she had a full staff, maid, cleaner, chef, driver when she lived in the US. After all, when I came over, Dad sent a team of 12 people to take care of me. No, usually I'm too busy, Vivian answered while tossing a salad. Not busy today? Busy today too, she said. But I promised Uncle I'd take good care of you. I was afraid someone else's cooking wouldn't suit your taste. Looking at the uneven potato strips Vivian was cutting, I silently thought I'd rather have the chef. At least it would be edible. But I didn't dare say it, considering Vivian had spent half the day on it. I forced myself to eat, giving Vivian an approving smile when she looked at me expectantly. Vivian was very satisfied. She took a bite herself and immediately spit it into the trash. Blake, I'll practice, she said, briskly clearing my plate and taking me out to eat. I thought the practicing thing was just talk, but surprisingly, she started cooking 3 meals a day. Her staff suffered the most, becoming her guinea pigs. Finally, as autumn arrived, Vivian invited me over for dinner again. It's all your favorites. I was about to protest, but I saw the table was indeed full of dishes I loved. Dishes Dad had made for me countless times growing up. I asked Uncle for the recipes. I tested the flavor bit by bit. It should be okay, Vivian said, unusually nervous. Eating the potato beef stew, my eyes felt hot. I missed my dad. Not good? Vivian asked. It's good. I want to eat this every day. I looked up and smiled. Vivian sat beside me and gently wiped away a tear. Okay, 3 meals a day. I'll make sure you eat healthy and delicious food. I'll fatten you up before we go back, so Uncle won't worry. Once Uncle is reassured, he'll agree to our marriage. When did I mention marriage? Vivian seemed to read my mind and continued, you need the Smith family support, and you want my cooperation. The best way is a political marriage. Don't worry, Blake. We get what we need. I'm very open-minded. If you don't like me after we get engaged, you can find a girl you actually like to date. I'll help you secure all the Donald family assets, and you help me seize the Smith family inheritance. I nodded. Vaguely. She was right. Marriage in our social class was interest first. I knew that clearly. Dad still hadn't divorced Mom, treating her affair indifferently because ultimately, it hadn't touched his core interests. But why did I feel a little disappointed? So, her learning to cook and keeping me company every day was just to get my dad's approval. Not for me. I started to reflect on whether I was too easily swayed by emotions. I thought I should learn from Vivian keep my eyes firmly on the goal. Feelings were just decoration. For months passed, and Vivian indeed fattened me up a bit. On the video call, Dad couldn't stop grinning. Dad loves seeing your face rounder now. Just like when you were little. Off camera, hearing this, Vivian glanced up at me, smiled, and looked back down. I thought to myself, her loyalty campaign was working well. No wonder she was happy. Dad will pick you up at the airport tomorrow. Haven't seen you in months. I missed you to death. Tomorrow, Vivian and I were going home for New Year's. During these months, Maria called me twice. Once when midterm grades came out. She excitedly told me, "Blake, with you gone, I'm finally first place." The second time, she demanded angrily, "I went to your house, you weren't there. Where on earth did you go?" I just listened and didn't respond. So she started texting me nonstop, gossiping about school, telling me what she did every day, asking where I was, asking why I ignored her. Soon she would know why. Following the annual tradition, our two families had a joint dinner for New Year's. This was the first time I saw Maria since coming back. She jumped around me excitedly. "Blake, where did you go? Did you sneak off to study behind my back?" I smiled. I was in New York, living right next door to Vivian. Maria's smile froze. She looked at me, then turned to look at Vivian. Vivian pretended not to see her, picking up a controller and handing it to me. I watched the tutorial for this level. "We'll definitely beat it this time." Maria exploded. She shouted, "Blake, I used to ask you to play games and you never did. Now you're playing with her?" "I'm keeping him company," Vivian said calmly, emphasizing the subject. In the US, Vivian did all the cooking. Once, on a whim, thinking I couldn't just leech off her, I volunteered to grill steaks. Vivian looked at the burnt steak, ate it all without frowning, and praised, "Blake is amazing. It's fully cooked." But after that, she never let me in the kitchen again. If you want to cook, there are other ways. So she started playing Overcooked with me. Gaming became the moment I looked forward to most when I was exhausted. We played many co-op games, our coordination getting better and better. I grew to like being with Vivian more and more. I ignored Maria, picked up the controller, and focused on the game. Maria sat aside, puffing her cheeks. After a while, she suddenly laughed. "I get it, Blake. You're trying to make me jealous, right? I saved David during the earthquake, so you ran to New York to find my sister to make me jealous. Stop it, Blake. Be mature. College apps are coming up. Your studies are the most important thing. Don't mess up your future." I stared at Maria for a moment, wanting to say something but unable to get the words out. I suspected her brain was broken. Until New Year's was over and Vivian and I returned to the US, Maria stubbornly believed I was just jealous. David said smart men understand playing hard to get the best. "Blake, you're very smart. Did David possess your body?" I asked. Maria froze. "What? Nothing." I increasingly felt that Maria was naturally this childish and arrogant deep down. David's appearance just amplified that side of her. "Thank you, David, for letting me see her clearly so early." 1 month before graduation, I received my acceptance letter from Wharton at UPenn. Dad flew to the US to celebrate. "Once Vivian finishes her exams, let's go on a trip to Europe." Dad approved of Vivian immensely. As a future daughter-in-law, Vivian had taken excellent care of me for the past year. Although she usually had a cold expression, Dad said, "As long as she smiles at you, that's enough." Dad's standard for a daughter-in-law was simple: treat me well and keep me in her heart. Plus, Vivian was objectively outstanding. Graduating summa cum laude from UPenn, speaking as the valedictorian, landing a job at a top firm everyone coveted, and most importantly, she had revived the Smith families. Failing overseas assets. Key point: beautiful, fit, great temperament. Look at that figure, look at that face, look at that 5 feet 8 inches height. That is the kind of woman worthy of my son. Not that undeveloped little girl Maria, Dad declared. After touring Europe together, Dad's opinion of Vivian soared. Elegant. Extremely elegant. Son, trust your dad's taste. You didn't make a mistake this time. I was skeptical. You picked Mom back then too, and she still cheated. Dad was unbothered. But when I picked her, I predicted it. With those fox eyes of hers, looking at anyone with sparks, plenty of men were bound to get hooked. But I didn't care. Being with her, I cared that the Donald family had the ability to support us, help us start the business, and make the company big and strong. Your dad married for money and status. But you're different. You're the only heir to the Donald family. You already have status and money, so you have the luxury to pursue feelings. Vivian is the optimal choice. She can give you what your mom gave me back then, and she can give you what your mom couldn't. Son, Dad just hopes you can be happy. The day before the grueling college entrance exams in China, Maria called to remind me, Blake, do your best tomorrow. You haven't been in class all year, so I don't know your level, but don't fall behind me. Don't forget we're gonna Stanford together. It seemed the Smith family hadn't told her I was getting engaged to Vivian, fearing it would affect her exams. Mr. Smith was originally against it. After all, if my family married his favorite daughter, Maria's chances of taking over the business would be higher. But there was no choice. The land needed for the Smith Group's new project was in my dad's hands, and that project was vital to them. Dad had only one demand. The Donald and Smith alliance stands, but the partner must be Vivian. For Mrs. Smith, both were her daughters. Her interests weren't harmed. So, no matter how unwilling Mr. Smith was, he had to agree. And fearing it would impact Maria's performance, he didn't dare let her know. By the time Maria found out, it was half a month after the exams. Right after finishing, she came to find me. Blake, let's celebrate being done. How about the beach? David said boys like watching dolphins. I'll take you out on a boat to see dolphins. Okay? I was interning at the family company, preparing to show my face every holiday so the employees would get used to me. Can't. Busy. Maria flipped through the book I was reading. Business school textbooks? Can you even understand this? Blake, taking over the company is ages away. Besides, if you marry me later, I won't let you work this hard every day. I'll keep you well-fed and pampered. You just need to do whatever makes you happy. So stop working so hard now. You should learn from David. Boys just need to be gentle and considerate. I turned and looked at her. Maybe my gaze was too direct, because her face darkened. Fine. I came with good intentions to invite you, and you're ungrateful. I'm leaving. Maria didn't even realize that in the few times she chatted with me, she always mentioned David. I hadn't paid attention to them, but I could guess David had infiltrated every aspect of her life. While Maria took David out on the boat, I interned during the day and studied with Vivian at night. She helped me prep for the new semester's courses, so I could free up more time to intern at major firms and learn the ropes of top-tier business. Vivian chose all these business books for me. She was a strict teacher. When I dozed off, she'd tap the desk lightly. Don't slack off. Getting straight as at Wharton is hard. Everyone there is brilliant. Comes down to who works harder. But usually, at times like this, she'd go downstairs to make me a late-night snack. Clear noodle soup, grilled eel, garlic escargot, curry shrimp. All my favorites. During her graduation year, while applying for grad school and taking care of me, Vivian somehow found time to get a nutritionist certification. Now, every meal she made for me was nutritionally balanced and delicious. I realized that meal by meal I was starting to like her. Maybe I was just attracted to competence. I liked being with excellent people. Even if it was tiring and fast-paced, I learned more. That sense of achievement and satisfaction was something a ride on a merry-go-round could never provide. Half a month later, Maria was coming back. She called me. Blake, I brought you a dolphin watch. I heard girls give their boyfriends dolphins to symbolize love. I reminded her we broke up a long time ago. I'm not your boyfriend. Maria asked lazily on the other end. Still mad? Still throwing a tantrum? Just because I went on a senior trip with David at the end? Blake, don't be so petty. I invited you and you didn't come. David's only wish was to travel with me. Be good. I'm coming back tomorrow. On the other end, David shouted, Maria, look, so many dolphins. His intentions were self-evident. But he miscalculated. It caused me no pain or threat. Maria hung up. See you at the birthday party tomorrow. It was funny she still remembered my birthday. Vivian and I decided to use the birthday party to announce our engagement before heading back to the States. First, to make our relationship public. With the Smith family as my backer, Mom wouldn't dare touch the family assets for now. Second, to use the engagement to make everyone in the Smith group realize who the real heir was. Something unexpected might happen tomorrow. Dad wants to talk to you beforehand. I don't want to ruin your day, but Dad said suddenly on the way home. It's okay. I comforted him quietly. Let them come. It's only meaningful if my 18th birthday has some drama. I knew what Dad wanted to do. Tomorrow all the guests would be there. It was a perfect opportunity. Dad, as long as you're by my side, even if the sky falls, my mood won't be ruined. On the day of the party, Mom and Dad flanked me. It was my 18th birthday. Dad threw the party at the city's most luxurious hotel. I wore a suit Dad picked out, cut the cake, poured the champagne tower, and toasted everyone. Suddenly, someone burst in. Blake, today is your coming-of-age ceremony. How could you not invite your own sister? A well-dressed man pushed open the doors, smiling. Behind him followed a girl 2 or 3 years younger than me. I looked at Dad in confusion, microphone still in hand. Dad, I have a sister? How did I not know? Dad looked humiliated, glaring at Mom. Mom looked awkward. But they said I was an only child. Isn't Mom supposed to love me the most? You threw this party for me, bought me an estate as a gift. How can there be a sister? My voice was full of confusion. But quickly I comforted myself aloud. No. Mom loves me the most. Those days she wasn't home. She was really working, not spending time with someone else. What other kids envied wasn't my money, but that I had all my mom's love. Mom wouldn't betray me. When I was scared of thunder as a kid, even if she wasn't there, she'd call to comfort me. When I was kidnapped, Mom was the most worried. When I fell into the ocean, Mom almost went crazy. I listed all the care and concern Mom had given me. But when those dangers happened, Mom wasn't by my side. She was with that man and his daughter. My panicked, nervous expression was visible to everyone. I was the kid everyone watched grow up, spoiled and cherished, innocent and well-behaved. Yet, at my most important coming-of-age event, I found out my mom had an illegitimate daughter. The guests looked at me with pity and heartache. Mom was initially just awkward and flustered, but after hearing my aggrieved yet self-soothing speech, her guilt toward me skyrocketed. She did not love me. She had spoiled me since birth. Because she spoiled me and valued me. Seeing my big day ruined, seeing her image as a loving mother crumbling in my eyes while I was still deceiving myself, the emotion that took over her brain was heartache. She clearly understood why this man came today, to force her to acknowledge the daughter in front of everyone. She had thought about it before, just admitting a daughter who, in the wealthy circle, didn't have secrets. But absolutely not right now. Not when her son was happiest. I was gambling that between me and the illegitimate daughter, she cared more about me. Even for the sake of the tied assets, she had to lean toward me. Lately, I had been dragging her down memory lane constantly. Mom, let's organize the childhood photos. Okay? Make a video for my party. Those memories she had forgotten became clear. She remembered her excitement when I was born, remembered holding me in her palm as I grew, remembered building a school just to keep me safe, remembered the time her negligence led to me falling into the ocean, and how she knelt outside the ER slapping her own face while I was being resuscitated. Now, those memories became slaps in the face. She spoke slowly. What nonsense. Where did this lunatic come from? I've seen plenty of men trying to latch onto me. You don't even make the list. Security, get them out. The security guards at these places were pros. The first thing they did was cover mouths, then drag them out. What the CEO didn't want to hear must absolutely not be spoken. Mom publicly denied their identity. This meant there was almost no chance they could ever appear as part of the Donald family. How could Mom betray you? Mom told you. You are Mom's most precious treasure, Mom's life. She wiped my tears and comforted me softly. Then she raised her glass to the crowd. Apologies for disturbing everyone's mood. Let the party continue. I know over the years, many people have tried to slander me or climb the social ladder through me, causing trouble for my husband. Today, I solemnly declare again, I have only one child, Blake. He is my entire world. This interlude wasn't worth dwelling on. The party remained lively. Mom held her wine glass, socializing with the guests. When Dad and I went to change suits, away from everyone, Dad looked at me with pure pride. Dad had leaked today's schedule to them. Dad arranged for security not to stop them initially, allowing them to barge in unobstructed. Mom didn't need to think hard to guess that, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that she understood what choice she had to make. We booked rooms at the hotel for the guests, to rest before the engagement party in the afternoon. Before this, no one knew I was getting engaged to Vivian. Even close family friends thought I would end up with Maria. So when they entered the banquet hall and saw the photo of Vivian and me, everyone was shocked. But soon they understood. Maria had been taking David everywhere lately. It wasn't a secret in the circle. Everyone assumed the Smith family would never accept David, that he was just a fling. Penny wise, pound foolish, someone sighed. But seeing Vivian's poised and elegant demeanor, they quickly smiled and congratulated us. A talented man and a beautiful woman. A match made in heaven. Before the ceremony began, Vivian said she prepared a video to watch with everyone. The video quality was a bit blurry at first. It showed a young me chasing pigeons in the Smith courtyard, tripping and crying on the ground. Then it was me starting kindergarten, clinging to my dad's leg, crying my lungs out. Me sitting under a tree eating ice cream, kindly sharing it with ants, then crying because the ant colony swarmed me. Memories that were never in the photo albums were suddenly projected on the screen. Then elementary school, piano practice, basketball, taekwondo, New Year's visits, learning to make candied hawthorn. In these clips, I was always laughing, carefree, innocent, and happy. All these perspectives came from Vivian. In those times I thought she wasn't home. She had silently recorded pieces of my life. She never told anyone. The video went until last New Year's. I was lying on the Smith family sofa reading. Mrs. Smith teased me, "Blake, will you be the Smith family's groom one day?" I smiled. Probably. Back then I was thinking of Maria. But Vivian used this clip for the video. Blake, there are secrets I wanted to bury in my heart, but maybe I was born lucky. Today I have the chance to let everyone know my feelings. Blake Donald, I like you more than anyone in the world. I know the engagement today is rushed. I owe you a proposal. I will make it up to you. Thank you for choosing me. I was stunned. I thought she rushed back that day to discuss the alliance. I thought all her care was to win my dad's approval. I never imagined she had always liked me. This seemed to be an unexpectedly good result. Although Mr. Smith's smile was forced, no one cared. Today, Vivian and I were the stars. No one would ruin the mood by mentioning Maria or Mr. Smith. But we couldn't stop Maria from coming herself. She pushed open the doors in a haute couture gown. Blake, I came back for your birthday. She walked straight toward me. I brought you a dolphin watch and took lots of photos of dolphins. I'm sure you'll like them. Honestly, if you hadn't thrown a tantrum, you could have seen them with your own eyes. Vivian silently stepped in front of me. He fell into the ocean as a child. He has a fear of deep water and doesn't dare go out to sea. Did you not know that? Hearing this, Maria looked struck by lightning. She stood frozen for a long time before she really saw the banquet hall. Photos of Vivian and me were everywhere. The massive happy engagement sign finally registered. Blake, you're getting engaged to my sister? She couldn't believe it. Blake, stop throwing a tantrum. I was wrong. I forgot about the ocean incident. I didn't consider your fear and kept asking you to go. I was wrong. I realize it now. It's all my fault. But don't provoke me like this. Did you hire all these people to act with you? Maria looked around, forcing a smile. It was an ugly smile. No matter how stupid she was, she realized Vivian and I were actually engaged. She was just lying to herself. Maria, we grew up together. We are friends and family. If you're here to wish us well, you're welcome. If you're here to cause a scene, I'm sorry. Please leave. I said coldly. Maria gave a bitter laugh, unable to speak. The pain in her eyes looked ridiculous to me. Inseparable from David for a year, and now suffering because I'm engaged to someone else? Isn't that laughable? Mrs. Smith looked like she couldn't bear to watch. With a wave of her hand, security approached. But Mr. Smith blocked them. This is your own daughter. There should be a limit to favoring the eldest. How can you treat your own daughter like that lunatic man? Maria seemed deaf to all of this. She took a woven bracelet off her wrist. Blake, remember this? You made this for me when we were 10. I've worn it all these years, never took it off. Nothing happened between David and me. Everything I did was just to make you care more. I just wanted to make you jealous. Now I know how stupid I was. I pushed you to someone else with my own hands. Blake, don't get engaged to my sister. Okay? Give me another chance? Whatever my sister can give you, I can give you too. Hearing this, Vivian raised an eyebrow and smiled. One of the dowries I'm giving Blake is all the Smith family's overseas shares. Can you give that? The overseas assets were nearly bankrupt until Vivian saved them. Afterward, they belonged to her, and she gave them all to me. I can use my own money to buy Blake a century-old manor in England. Can you? I can stay up with him to study, do practice problems, play ball, edit his essays, and research academic reports. Can you? Maria, let Blake go. You aren't suitable. He is a star meant to hang in the sky alongside the moon, not a nightlight to be kept in the backyard. Do you understand? Mrs. Smith sighed. Your sister is right. You and Blake aren't right for each other. Stop making a scene. Since you're here, wish your sister and Blake well. We're still family. Maria wanted to say more, but Mr. Smith dragged her off the stage, holding her arm tightly. Mrs. Smith agreed to the engagement because she saw Vivian's competence. She knew her younger daughter, spoiled since childhood, couldn't handle heavy responsibilities. As long as she didn't break the law and stayed a happy, wealthy heiress, that was fine. The day after the engagement, Vivian and I went back to the U.S. I didn't pay much attention to news about Maria. I only knew she did get into Stanford, but refused to go, insisting on applying to overseas universities like me. Sophomore year, Maria came to the U.S. too. Seeing me after a year, she seemed much more grounded. She stared at me for a long time, then turned her head and cried. Vivian went to the kitchen to make dinner, leaving space for Maria. Blake. I'm sorry, Maria said. I realize now how immature I was. I always said I liked you, wanted to marry you, but I never put myself in your shoes. I never knew what you wanted. I liked the excellent, high and mighty you, but I wanted to drag you down just to eat, drink, and play with me. I wasn't mature enough. I did a lot of stupid things that hurt you. I'm sorry. Looking at the thinner Maria, I ruffled her hair, trying to act like a brother-in-law. I accept your apology. Let's not bring up the past, okay? Since you got into the school you wanted, study hard. Look up to your sister, don't disappoint your parents. Live well. You'll find a boy who suits you, who is on your wavelength. Okay. You really are playing the role well. Quite the brother-in-law, Vivian laughed, coming out of the kitchen with a plate of pan-seared salmon. Maria's favorite. Eat. Afterward, I'll drive you to school. Mom bought you a house near campus. Butler, doctor, maid, chef, all there. If you need anything, tell me or your brother-in-law. Maria nodded silently and ate the salmon in silence. Before following Vivian out, she looked back at me. I could feel her intense grief. But people have to take responsibility for their choices. Regret, pity, pain, you have to bear it yourself. After the birthday party, everyone assumed I was the heir. Mom didn't dare bring up the illegitimate daughter again, but just in case, I needed to take over the company ASAP. Power is only yours when it's in your hands. So for the next few years, I flew back and forth constantly, starting from subsidiary companies and working my way to the group's core. The year I graduated, I picked up my diploma in the morning, spoke as the valedictorian, took photos with famous alumni, and by afternoon I was on a plane back to China for the board meeting the next day. When I pushed open the boardroom doors, Mom couldn't stop smiling. Nothing made her prouder than introducing her successful son. My son, Blake Donald. In 2 years, while studying full-time, he doubled the revenue of our subsidiary. How many people here could achieve that? Dad's voice boomed, eager to tell the world I was the best. Today's meeting was for share transfer. Mom held 40%, Dad held 30%. Dad forced Mom to transfer enough to give me 50% combined, mostly from her. This would make me the majority shareholder with 35% personally, plus their backing. In the past, Mom would have refused. But these past few years, she saw my capability. While most rich kids were squandering money, I became a campus legend, standing on podiums with titans of industry. Everyone who praised me added, President Donald raised a good son. Mom validated my ability while enjoying the flattery. Plus, with the Smith family backing me, she finally agreed to the transfer. Meeting adjourned. I became the new chairman of the Donald Group, the youngest chairman in the capital. Over these years, Vivian successfully took over the Smith Group too. But no matter how busy she was, she cooked dinner for me personally. After dinner, we read or worked together just like before, or played games if we were tired. Weekends, we played ball or practiced piano. Life was calm but fulfilling. After Dad passed away, Maria never came back. But I hope she can attend our wedding, Vivian said suddenly while reviewing the guest list. Come to think of it, I hadn't checked on Maria in years. I only knew she spent holidays traveling the world or interning. After Mr. Smith died, she practically vanished. Now, in the huge Smith family, only Mrs. Smith was left. Sure, she's your only sister. We should invite her. I understood completely. Vivian always worried about Maria, especially after their dad died. She acted as both sister and mother. I'll contact her. Getting my affirmative answer, Vivian happily went to make the call. I took a moment to review the list of assistant candidates HR sent me. There was a familiar face, David. Before the interview, I ran into David downstairs. He smiled and walked up to me. Blake, long time no see. I smiled politely. Long time no see. You work at Donald Group? Oh right, your last name is Donald. I heard Maria mention before that Donald Group seemed related to your family. No wonder you could afford a villa. It pays to have relatives in the company. By the way, I'm interviewing for chairman's assistant today. It's the final round. Might as well tell you my girlfriend said the job is mine. What about you? What position? Seeing you buying coffee alone without an assistant, probably just a regular employee, right? Heard you went abroad too. Did you run to some diploma mill because you were afraid of failing to get into Stanford? Too bad. Coming back plated in gold, and you're still not as good as me. But don't worry, once I'm in, I'll help you out. I looked at David. Gone was the shyness of his youth. Wearing designer clothes, he spoke with supreme confidence. It seemed that after high school, he and Maria never contacted each other. Who is your girlfriend? I asked. David lifted his chin. Stacy Brooke. Her dad is the marketing director. Blake, you used to beat me because Maria liked you, but I hear she won't even come back to the country now. You can't rely on her. Stripped of family background, you aren't much better than me. You should really read the news more often. I couldn't be bothered to talk to him anymore. But David chased after me. You asked who my girlfriend is, you aren't trying to hit on her, are you? She's rich, beautiful, and a manager herself. I've seen guys like you who think looking good means you don't have to work hard. Just seduce successful women. I advise you to stay away from her. But after 2 steps, security blocked him. Internal access only. Unauthorized personnel keep out. An hour later, I saw David in the conference room. How did he get an interview? I asked HR. Internal recommendation. Internal recommendation allows ignoring work experience and education. David had 0 experience, and his degree from a second-tier school beat out graduates from top universities. Where exactly does David outperform the others to warrant this exception? HR smiled apologetically, unable to speak. David chimed in. Blake, please know your place. Don't offend people you can't afford to offend. I looked at him coldly. I told you to read the news. You only read entertainment news. Didn't you? Right, the financial section would be wasted on your cognitive level anyway. The HR manager next to him whispered urgently, This is our chairman. David looked shocked, speechless. Call Stacy and Director Brooke here. Internal nepotism was probably common. Since they walked into the line of fire today, I'd use them to make an example. When Stacy learned the full story, she turned around and slapped David. I told you to be low-key. Are you deaf? Now you've hurt me and my dad. How can there be such a stupid man? She tried to explain to me, but I didn't have time for nonsense. Investigate them both thoroughly. Audit everyone in the company who got in through connections. A week later, a trending topic sent me to the headlines. Donald Group Chairman Blake Donald plays two sisters, causes feud, angering father to death. The whistleblower was David. Some netizens remembered him, the handsome cat-saving boy. Maria tried everything to pursue him, but he strung her along while flirting with Vivian, eventually causing the sisters to fight physically. Old Mr. Smith died of anger because of this. I used to be good friends with Maria. She told me all of this. David's proof was a photo of him and Maria, proving he had a reliable source. This news directly impacted the company's stock. PR rushed to take down the news, but I stopped them. Announced that Vivian and I are getting married at the end of the year. Then release this video and publish the records of the school fully funding David for 3 years. Announce the results of the internal audit clearing out corruption. Finally, announce the establishment of a foundation to provide free medical and educational aid to orphans until college graduation. Soon, the blockbuster news of my marriage to Vivian shocked both the financial and entertainment worlds, buffering the impact of David's allegations. Immediately after, the old footage of David staging the cat rescue, which I had dug up years ago, was leaked. Netizens instantly flipped, accusing him of animal abuse and lying. Looks like the allegations against Donald Group might not be true. Exactly. They paid for his school, and he bites the hand that fed him. By afternoon, Donald Group released a statement and surveillance video detailing David using connections to steal interview spots. Netizens praised me for giving opportunities to candidates without backgrounds and cursed David for playing the victim. Finally, Donald Group stated we would establish the foundation and wouldn't stop helping orphans just because of one David. In a single day, Donald Group's reputation reversed, gaining massive goodwill, and the stock price soared. At dinner, Mom couldn't stop praising me. Blake, you were born to dominate the business world. Mom can retire in peace now, go fishing and plant flowers. I asked Dad if he still didn't plan to divorce Mom. Dad said it wasn't necessary. Divorce was bad for the company image, and asset division was a hassle. I already put that father and daughter on the household registry of some distant relatives. They won't cause trouble again. Your mom is terrified now that I have leverage over her. She listens to everything I say. Don't forget, she still has shares she hasn't given you. Life, you can get through it any which way. Isn't it better having someone serve you? By the way, don't forget to hire that rising starlet for the new product endorsement. Her acting is pretty good lately. I have to go to the launch event. Looking at beautiful women is good for the soul. I smiled and agreed. Okay. As long as Dad is happy. Vivian and I signed a prenup. Our respective assets were separate. Remember when you said you were open-minded and I could find a girl I like to date? I locked in that starlet for the endorsement. I teased Vivian as I lay in her arms. Vivian sat up abruptly. How can words from back then count now? Back then you didn't like me and I didn't dare show my feelings. I just wanted to respect you. To be with you I could pretend not to care. But now our hearts are connected, right? No. I never keep my word anyway. You can't take it seriously. Which starlet? I'll have her blacklisted tomorrow. I couldn't stop laughing. Vivian was incredibly cute when she was jealous. Relax, it's Dad's new crush. I was just teasing you. Did you reach Maria? Vivian pinched my nose. Stop scaring me. I was really panicked just now, wishing I could go back in time and punch myself. How could I make a promise like that? Then she hugged me tightly, resting her head on my shoulder, voice soft. She's fallen in love with painting over the last 2 years. She said she's sketching outdoors and won't come back, but she sends us her heartfelt blessings. Do you have regrets? I asked. Vivian nodded. She's my only family left. Then she added, I went abroad young. I only came back for holidays. After Mom died, family didn't mean much to me. I thought I was exiled, left with only myself. But you showed up. You said we'd walk into the future together. Blake, you are my love, my family, my best friend. Having you is enough. As for Maria, I'll support her financially. I'll do right by Dad's spirit. I won't let her suffer for money. I turned and hugged Vivian, smelling the faint gardenia scent on her. I felt at peace. These years were tiring, but worth it. I got everything I wanted. After marriage, Vivian and I traveled abroad every year. The year we turned 30, we went to Norway. Vivian went to a branch office for urgent business. I walked the streets alone, enjoying the rare solitude, and wandered into a book cafe. There were many oil paintings inside. The biggest one was of a starry sky. I stood in front of it for a long time, feeling an inexplicable familiarity. The clerk was a young Chinese guy. Seeing I liked it, he came over. Our boss painted this. She's Chinese too. This painting was supposed to be a wedding gift for the boy she loved, but she never sent it. So it hangs here. Our boss loves the starry sky. She says the Norwegian sky is the most beautiful. The stars shine so bright in the dark night. She liked it, so she stayed in Norway. Do you like the painting? The boss went to buy groceries. She'll be back soon. You can wait for her. I thought I knew who the boss was. Is she doing well? I asked. The boy was surprised but answered quickly, not really. During the day she's either painting or drinking. When she drinks too much, she paints. When she's tired, she sleeps. I told her to find a boyfriend, but she won't. She says her boy is still there. She won't look for anyone else. But as a boss, she's great. Pays high wages and doesn't micromanage. Please tell her. Her sister misses her. Tell her to visit home when she has time. As I walked out of the cafe, Vivian called. By the way, I heard the starry sky in Norway is beautiful. Let's go watch the stars tonight, okay? Okay. I stood behind a tree, watching a thin woman in a wool coat and cashmere scarf, carrying a bag of groceries into the cafe. The clerk smiled, took the groceries, and chattered around her. I turned around and spoke into the phone. Let's look for souvenirs after dinner. Otherwise, the kids will clamor for gifts when we get back. Understood. Chairman Donald. Mrs. Donald will be there in a minute.